What's up, party people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Oh, you're not entertained. Let me entertain you. Today on the program, speaking of entertainment, I have Eric Diamond. Oh, yeah, Eric Diamond, Mr. Western Swing, singing and dancing. Oh, we're going to talk about that, singing and dancing. Oh, man, and he's out of New Mexico, but he's all over these United States and, hey, maybe beyond. We'll see what happens. So we'll be getting to know him in the next few minutes, so stick around. This week's shows, let's see, I have one public show, my usual Friday night gig at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas, the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. Yes, I said karaoke. Oh, yeah, karaoke. You're the stars of the show. We got a big stage, and you get to provide the entertainment for at least a few minutes, you know, song by song. All I'm doing is pressing buttons. They got a full bar. The kitchen's open, pool tables. They got a pool tournament. So if you want to try your hand at playing pool and possibly make some money while you're doing it, come on out to the Rab, Conway, Arkansas, on Friday night. I'll be there from 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the AM. Get there early, have some food, have some drinks, have some fun. Oh, it's good, people. It's good times at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas, Friday night. And then Saturdays are made for private events. I'm not sure. I think I have a wedding this week. No, not a corporate event, birthday party. Either way, we'll get it all set up and have a good time doing it. Saturdays are made for private events. Occasionally, I get to go to the VFW in Choctaw, Arkansas from time to time. But yeah, Saturdays are made for private parties. So hire me out. All right. Speaking of entertainment, let's get into it with Eric Diamond, Mr. Western Swing, singing and dancing. I got him on Skype, so if you're listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to check out the video version on my YouTube page, youtube.com/user/KeysDAN. Skyping Eric Diamond now.
Oh, yeah, much clearer than the other night.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my goodness, I have a country western singer in my face. Mr. Eric Diamond in the house. What's going on, my man?
Oh, man, just a little bit exhausted. It's been a busy. For the last 24 months, I've been on the road far more than I've been at home. And this is my second podcast today.
Wow.
And I've done 3 days in a row, and I've got 9 podcasts scheduled between now and into early February.
Well, I hope we make this one a good one because full disclosure, we tried to do this a couple days ago to my loyal listener, and it was raining cats and dogs, the proverbial cats and dogs, and my internet connection did not cooperate, but I'm glad that everything is clear right now, and I'm looking at Eric Diamond. Now, I did start off the last time, and I want to repeat myself because I did like it. When I was thinking about this interview, when I was thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about the Western swing, the country and Western style that you are, the twang. And I remembered my favorite musical movie is probably The Blues Brothers from 1980. And I remember when either Dan Aykroyd or John Belushi's character asked the bartender, what kind of music do you usually play here at Bob's Country Bunker? And she replied, country and Western. Is that where you live? Is that the style of music that you listen to, eat, sleep, and breathe? Or does something else climb into that head of yours to give you inspiration, Eric Diamond?
Well, a lot of influences over the years, probably starting out with traditional country, Patsy Cline, Marty Robbins, Ray Price, George Jones, Johnny Cash, on and on. And I've loved traditional country and Western swing basically my entire life, with my preference being Western swing nowadays. Although the majority of my career I did traditional country music and mainstream country music back when there was no differentiating, back in the 80s, but when country music took a turn, now they have different genres of country music.
Yeah, it's kind of a rockabilly. When it first started in the 90s to really change and branch out and experiment with things other than a fiddle and a guitar, what is the lay down steel guitar, those kind of things. When it kind of branched out, and I mean, they were even doing hybrid mixes with either rock bands or rappers. In the 90s, they were really branching out. But when all right, I don't like people too much name dropping. I can't say that. I do appreciate that the names that you dropped, whether you knew them or not. If you're going to be influenced by anybody, Marty Robbins, the Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, Hank Williams Sr., and maybe Jr. as well. I mean, these are the ones that have withstood the test of time. They made their music back almost 100 years ago. And we're still listening to that music. So there's got to be something good about that good old-timey music that makes us tap our toes, that makes us still feel good at the backyard barbecue or at the wedding or at any family gathering. What kind of gigs are you into playing that Western swing and making people happy? What kind of gigs do you like to do?
Well, first, we don't want to forget Bob Wills, who is both in the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the creator, Bob Wills, and Milton Western swing music. And people that aren't familiar with it, a lot of people hear Western swing music, they just think it's good country music, which it is. But basically, it's, I tell people that ask me, how would you describe country music? I say, imagine Frank Sinatra colliding with Hank Williams Sr.
See, Hank Williams Sr. didn't even, from what I understand, he didn't consider himself a country music star or a pop star. He just played the music that he wanted to play. And that made, it made him feel good. For example, I play music on RadioWhat.com that I like to hear. And if I like it, somebody else is going to like it. So if you're putting together these notes, these chords in a certain kind of way that makes you feel good, makes the people around you feel good, somebody else is going to like it, because we have similar taste in chord progression and the theory of chords and music and stuff. But you did mention that Bill was in the Country Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now,
Bob Wills.
Yeah, Bob Wills. And that kind of reminded me, Dolly Parton just got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But to give herself credit, she said, I'm not going to do it till I get into to play some rock music, and she went ahead and did that. She played a whole rock album.
I guess I've heard a little bit, just what I've seen on either the internet or television. I've been a huge Dolly Parton fan, probably like every red-blooded American man.
Well, I mean, what do you think about the integrity of that? They offer her this position in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because she's done so much for music in general. I'm sure if Kenny Rogers was still alive, they'd offer him the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He might be in it. I haven't checked the records, but my goodness, these are people that sing, Willie Nelson, another one I put in that category. They could sing the phone book and have people entertained. And, what do you think of the integrity or what it showed that Dolly Parton said, hey, I'm not going in there. I don't care what, this award is very prestigious, or being inducted is very prestigious, but she wouldn't do it unless she felt she had the cred.
Well, a lot of respect for that. Absolutely.
Well, I've been offered awards over the years, and I don't know about awards and accolades and, oh, you were, the number one DJ in Miami or whatever. I don't know about those kinds of accolades. It's when the fans come about. Have you won any awards, and how did you feel about those awards?
Well, I won the Western Swing Male Vocalist of the Year by the Academy of Western Artists in 2022, which really boosted the comeback in my career that I'm having. I was up for Album of the Year. I finished tied for second. This year, I'm up for a lot of awards. I'm up for an Ameripolitan Award for Western Swing Male Vocalist of the Year. The album is up for Western Swing Album of the Year with the Ameripolitans. I was the top 5 finalist for Cowboy Swing Album of the Year by the IWMA, which is the International Western Music Association. We're up for 6 awards with the International Singer-Songwriter Association. Individual songs, songwriting, singing, the album, the whole 9 yards. We're up for 5 awards at the Red Carpet Awards in the Netherlands, and we're up for a couple awards at the Red Carpet Awards in Germany. So the new album, it's the most played Western Swing album on radio in the world, and obviously it's done extremely well for awards and stuff. You know, awards are nice. They certainly look good on your resume, which help you get jobs, but my favorite thing is even way more than recording is live performance. I want to be back touring full time, which I did in the 90s and the early 2000s. I worked in an 11-state region, and I want to be touring and performing. Live audience and the interaction that takes place that's what I live for. That's what I care about most. Plus, I told my promoter last year, producer last year, awards are nice, but I can't eat them. I need paychecks.
Well, what's nice about having all these accolades and all these people recognize you in all these different award shows all over the world is that you're going to get more ears listening to you and probably, more invites to different places around the world. I don't know how far out of, I guess you're in Los Alamos, New Mexico, but how far out of Los Alamos, New Mexico have you gone? How far away from home have you been touring throughout this globe of ours?
I'm in the Rocky Mountain Playboys. We worked in an 11-state region. We played Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And then the last 8 years, I've been working with the Western Swing Society, playing in Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. This last year, I sang in Nashville at the Music City Bar and Grill, which was a treat. I lived in Nashville when I was 26 years old. I sang in every bar in Printer's Alley, and I've sang in every bar on Broadway.
Wow, we're saying
trying
something.
to get as many places as we can, and as many states, as many venues and stages as we're invited. We will go anywhere.
Well, you picked out some states that have wide open spaces, big expanses. Really, what America the Beautiful, that song, it just encompasses the Wyoming, the Minnesota, the Texas, the Utah, the big giant states with these big expanses, you have, if anybody's listening to the audio version, check out the video version, because you have all these beasts hanging up on your wall behind you. Are you a hunter, or is this something that you're a part of? What is it? What are those heads behind you?
Well, on this wall, I have 8 white-tailed deer. On the wall you can't see in front of me, I have 4 giant mule deer and an axis deer. Over in my living room, I have a hog, another big mule deer. In the breezeway, I have a mule deer, 3 whitetails, and a black buck. I was a guide for 34 years. Most people, when they ask me, what'd you do most of your life for a living? Well, when I was young, I broke horses and I did some cowboying. But most of my life, I sang and fished for a living. I was a fishing guide for 34 years, and about the last 15 years or so, I helped guide deer hunters, elk hunters, black bear hunters. I grew up in an area where we had deer, elk, bear, mountain lions, moose, bighorn sheep, mountain goats. I grew up a little community called Vallecito, Colorado, is where I lived most of my life, and it was at the base of the Weminuche Wilderness. I went 23 years without buying any meat from the grocery store consecutively. So yeah, I like to do that. This year, I moved out of Colorado after 41 years or 42 years. The culture had changed too much in there in the Durango area. We had a big influx of California move in the 90s, and it just kind of changed the cultures. I mean, Durango used to be one of the best cowboy towns in the West, like Cheyenne, Wyoming, or other places. It was steakhouses and saloons and ranchers and rodeo cowboys, and now it's pink tofu and
Understood. And that's one of the things about people that are leaving California because it was so terrible and high taxed, and then they're going into other places and making it into California again. It's kind of
yeah.
it gets kind of tough.
Yeah.
You left this for a reason, and now you're turning the place that you went to the same as what you left. I think it's gonna,
Exactly.
you're gonna have more of the same.
Time from people.
But to each his own. I guess we got to be mindful. But hey, you're a hunter. Are all these animals are these ones that you caught on your own? You got these?
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh! See, I'm from Miami in the Florida Keys, and the hunting I did was fish. And I could appreciate that you were a fishing guide. I did a lot of saltwater fishing. I'm guessing being in Colorado, you did a lot of freshwater fishing. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I guided for 34 years on Vallecito Reservoir. We had 7 different species of fish. We had sockeye salmon, rainbow trout, brown trout, cutthroat trout, northern pike, walleyes, and smallmouth bass. I still have a lot of mounts, but I've sold a bunch because I've downsized. I had 31 shoulder mounts. I've sold 13 world-class fish mounts that I caught. I'm still downsizing. If anybody's looking for, any kind of taxidermy, I still have plenty.
No, I appreciate living off.
Sold a bearskin rug.
I can appreciate you living off the land. I have a brother-in-law, Mike, who was on this podcast talking about his trucking trucking experiences and making pleas on that and the trucking industry and what's going on with that. But he also hunts, and there's a lot of times when he'll hunt twice a year and make his meat. He'll have meat for the family for the whole year on those 2 hunts, I guess.
Yeah.
And then he has a little extra for us. I like venison. I do. My wife really cooks it up real nice and makes me a little venison burger and a meatloaf, I guess, or I can't remember exactly what kind of stuff but she puts it in front of me and it's tasty. I guess you got to mix it up with a little bit of fat from another animal and make it taste real nice. But I mean, what you say that you hunt enough, or at least you used to hunt enough to get your meat for 27 years?
I went 23 years consecutive without buying any meat from the grocery store. I moved during the COVID, which was a bit of a nightmare. Luckily, this year I won't have to buy any meat. I had a friend give me an entire deer. I had another friend give me some buffalo that he shot a buffalo up in Wyoming, I believe it was, and I got a friend that got an elk here in New Mexico. So my freezer's packed. Matter of fact, I got a couple freezers packed, and that helps, especially with the cost of groceries these days. And I like the meat's better.
Well, it's nice to have that prosperity. It's nice to have a full refrigerator that lets you know that you're doing something right. I look, am I doing okay? Open the refrigerator. You got enough to eat. You got a roof over your head. You got, you got clothes on your back. The simple things, the necessities in life. As long as those are taken care of, what do you need? A gigantic house? You might have a gigantic house. Hey, more power to you. But all I need is the simple things in life, and I feel good. Pursuit of happiness, and I hope everybody gets that happiness with that pursuit. But
I've downsized extensively. There was a time where I had a little 10-acre farm and horse facility. I was a team roper, and my wife at the time was a barrel racer. And, I had 5 giant freezers, and we'd put on big fish fries and feed 60 people, in one season, I boated 1,800 pounds of salmon, not to mention all the other species. So, yeah, that was really nice. I'm kind of missing that now, but thank God some of my friends took care of me this year. And I want to get back, relocating and getting set up again is always, a lot of challenges, but hoping to get back in a position where I can provide my own food by fishing and hunting. I luckily got to fish a couple times this year and had success every time. So that we put that meat in the freezer and ate a bunch of it already. And I just picked up a deer a couple weeks ago that my buddy shot. He had shot two of them, and he doesn't really like to eat venison because he doesn't know how to prepare it, I guess. Because I've made venison for people and they don't know the difference between it and beef. Especially if you're making Mexican food, burritos, tacos, enchiladas. You can't tell the difference.
Well, you definitely moved into the right area. You got Los Alamos, New Mexico. You got enough for the people that are making those tacos to help you learn how to do it right. Oh man, goodness, it's man, you got. All right, the kids call it street cred when you're in the urban, when you're in the city, when you're in the streets. But I don't even know, is there a country version of that you actually walk the walk, you talk the talk, you're roping cows, you're shooting a buffalo, deers, and living off the land? Is there a country version of street cred? Is it farm cred? Wild cred? I need to make up a new term if we don't have one.
You might have to make up a term, but I grew up in an area where that was just the norm. Horses and mules were the number one industry, not so much cattle. In the small community up in the mountains where I grew up, it was horses was the industry. But not far away were cattle ranchers. And of course now I'm down in, I spend a lot of time in Texas, which is definitely cattle country. I bought a home in Texas and was planning on moving directly there from Colorado when the COVID hit, which brought me back in a roundabout long story, but I won't bore you with that. But I'm back in New Mexico, which was actually where I was born. I don't know if you've ever seen the television show Longmire, but that was all filmed right here at the Via Caldera up in the Jemez Mountain country. And we've got a bunch of wild critters running around here.
Man,
Absolutely.
that is on my list of things to watch. One of the latest shows that I've been watching, or I did watch, I watched the series, was the Yellowstone. Fantastic series. All right. I know, people that have been cowboys, I know that it's a hard job. You've been a cowboy. Have you experienced any of what's in that show? I know it's got to be highly dramatized, highly fictionalized, but maybe some of that stuff happens. Tell me about your experience as a cowboy.
A lot of it's, the water in the West is a big deal and fights over water, but all the shooting and violence and all that they put in that show is, no, I never experienced. That's pretty unrealistic at that scale. But I knew about it where I grew up. There were some characters, that there was a guy named Francis Post that cowboyed in our valley for a number of years. And he had ridden horses from British Columbia all the way to Gulf of Mexico with a string of horses. I knew another guy, Mule Will Weir. When I met Will, he had a string of horses and mules, no automobile. Just real characters that had grown up on the, working the ranches, the big outfits. Nowadays, Texas is one of the few states that still has the big ranches anymore. I'm not too sure about Montana and stuff, but Colorado, I saw firsthand where a lot of the land got chopped. There's still some ranches there, but a lot got chopped up and condos popping up everywhere and just changed the culture, And I've got good friends that still cowboy up in the Dakotas, and that's still good cowboy country for sure.
Yeah, my father-in-law, he lived up in Montana as a ranger for a little bit. He was a cop most of his life, but he spent a little time up there as a ranger, and he says, man, I want to go back. And I'm here in Arkansas. It is too cold for me. We had snow just last week, and I'm freezing like crazy. And I'm Miami. I'm South Florida boy. But the one thing that Yellowstone dramatized or fictionalized is something that I heard of, that Yellowstone National Park, it kind of stretches out into Utah in this place where nobody lives. And that's where they were putting the bodies, because I don't think that, well, the theory is that if anything happens in that little part where there's no people and they have to have, people on your jury from the area where things happen. I don't know. Is there any truth to that? Have you ever heard of such a place that there's no law in there?
There's a lot of wide open spaces in the West Hill, and certainly reservation land is pretty barren and unoccupied. And of course, where I lived, giant wilderness where,
My goodness,
people could certainly get lost forever. But
yeah, I
was never involved in anything like that.
No, I was
too busy making music.
No convictions. No, and I love that you've been a part of the wilderness, part of Colorado. I've done the whitewater river rafting, not on my own. Of course, I was a passenger when I had the guide, up at the top of this. My whole family's just kind of passengers, and there's a guide at the top of his of the raft, kind of doing his thing, whitewater rafting, jumping off a cliff into the white water, into the cold water in Colorado. Loved it. Watching being there in July, and there's snowbanks still 12 foot high heading up to Pikes Peak. And you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. The community I lived in was a beautiful community built around a lake that was 5.5, 6 miles long and a mile wide, surrounded, and that was at 8,000 feet elevation. Then it was surrounded by 12 and 13,000 foot peaks. So some years, it'd be 4th of July, it'd be, 88 degrees, lovely sunny, but the peaks would still have snow on them,
Man, I've never been
we would get immense snow load.
Yeah, I've never been outside of this country of ours, but there's so much to see here in these wide open expanses, from sea to shining sea and everything in between. When I took the trip on I-10 all the way across from Miami, from Florida, all the way out to California, passing through much of the Painted Desert, passing through all of Texas, just seeing off the side of the road. And I was doing I was DJing little parties here and there, all the way across, but getting to see this, the expanse and the beauty of this country of ours, and playing for the people, playing your music, getting them swinging. Now, when you're playing, I'm guessing you play at a lot of festivals, maybe, what was it? Barns, clubs? What kind of gigs are you doing these days? When you first did it?
These days, well, obviously I started playing in the bars and the saloons, did that for many years, BFWs, etc. Then, I played on what was called the A-Room circuit for 11 years, which was all big road clubs where, all the touring top traveling road bands would come in, and you'd play for most clubs an average of 5 nights a week. Some were more than that. Once in a while you'd get lucky and you'd have a club that was a 3 or 4 nighter that paid the same money. But typically they average it out to probably 5 nights a week. The last 8 years, all I'm doing is festivals, which is great. I don't think my voice could hold up singing like we used to. We used to, I would sing 4.5 hours a night, 5 nights a week after week, town after town, state after state. But the last 7, 8 years, just doing festivals, special events, private parties, things like that. I want to mention one thing about, I sang, you're in Arkansas. Arkansas is a beautiful state. I've been lucky. I've been in all but 4 of the lower 48, and not performing, but I've traveled in and been. But I actually did sing one time in Fort Smith, Arkansas, with a Curb Records act called Blake and Brian. I had made friends with the band and their road manager at a club that I worked at in Durango, and they called me and said, "Hey, man, we need another singer for this week in Fort Smith. Would you be willing to go with us?" And I was like, absolutely. So had a great time there in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And I've deer hunted in Arkansas, I guess, 5 years. I met a gentleman who had a hunting lodge there in Tierra Nowhere, which isn't too far out of Texarkana, but obviously into Arkansas. Beautiful place. and we would exchange hunts every year. I would come down and whitetail hunt in Arkansas. He would come to Colorado and hunt elk and bear, and we just would trade trips, you know.
Now, elk and bear, do you use all the meat of the bear as well? Have you eaten bear?
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to where, I mean, you know, if you've got bear in your freezer and you've got deer and elk in your freezer and you're coming home going, what do I want for dinner tonight? You're usually not going, I really want some bear. You're going for that deer and elk. But bear makes good roast. I wouldn't recommend eating a bear steak. I've never had one, but I can imagine it. And bears are different. You know, if you get a bear that's been living in an apple orchard or eating, you know, raspberries all summer long, that's pretty good bear to eat rather than one that's been rolling over rocks and eating grubs or digging out of a dumpster, you know.
I got you.
But the last several bears that I shot or you know, helped on guided trips, we donated a lot of the bear meat to low income families that were happy to have it, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. All right, for my loyal listeners, if there's a vegan out there, don't get offended. You know, people eat meat. It's got good protein. There was a time when I thought I could become a vegetarian, and that was about 5 years in my 20s. I was starting to think different ways. You know, I was in college, and you know, it didn't take. It didn't take. I like the taste of meat. I like what it does for me. I like my vegetables too. I'll eat me spinach and me cauliflower.
Absolutely.
I got no problem with that. So you know, it's nice to be able to enjoy what this country offers, what this planet offers is you know, good food that we can enjoy, that's part of that pursuit of happiness I was talking about earlier. And you sing about it, man. And now you do a lot of covers. That one, All of Me. I love your cover of All of Me. When I was listening to it, I was going, man, that just makes me want to dance and, you know, grab my honey and just swing her around the dance floor. So beautiful. But tell me about the music that you've created.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Western swing was all based about dancing. It originated out in West Texas. You know, the ranchers and the cotton farmers, every week they'd go to someone's barn and people would break out the fiddles and guitars and they'd have a dance. And so it is very danceable music. Matter of fact, I think it's the best dance music there is. All of Me, certainly, I was excited to have the opportunity to record that song. I've loved that song since I was a kid, you know, and I'm really happy with our version. It seems like the response on it's been great from everyone, and radio, the audiences, everything. Then we have some songs on the album that we wrote. I co-wrote 3 songs with Kurt Ryle, Oklahoma Bound, which has been done extremely well on radio. Then there's a song that we wrote called Strike That Match, and it's doing great on radio, as well as the traditionalists. And then we wrote a traditional country waltz. Willie, Waylon, Haggard, and Jones is on the album. And it's been matter of fact, the 3 originals have been very successful on radio. We wrote a 4th song, and I honestly can't think of the title of it right now because we cut it. When it came time to lay down the final vocal tracks, I couldn't tackle it. It was out of my wheelhouse range-wise. So another artist named Lonnie Bartmus is putting it on his album. He's a phenomenal singer. It's a great song, so I'm happy about that because that that won't hurt with royalties. So
now, am I to understand that you worked with Willie, Waylon, Haggard, and Jones? Do you know these people, or did you know these people?
No, that's just a song. No, I worked. I knew Joe Nichols before he was a big star. I knew Neil McCoy. I knew Chris Ledoux back when those guys were making $50, $100 a night per man, you know, because they all worked in that Farmington, Durango area. I got to open for Ricky Van Shelton, Eddie Arnold, Mel Tillis, Debbie Reynolds, the Everly Brothers. I had several guys that worked for me over the years that had Peter Ned's played lead guitar for me off and on for a number of years. He had toured with Johnny Rodriguez. I think he did some work with Freddie Fender. I had Frank Anstead, Joe Thomas, Buck Rhodes. They all had played with Neil McCoy. And then, because Neil used to play a lot in our area before he became a huge success star. He's a wonderful guy, too. It was funny. I told this story on another show, but after he was a big star, and right after he had come out with that remake of Kiss Me Each Morning for a Million Years, Then You Can Tell Me Goodbye. Remember that song?
Oh, my goodness, man.
Yeah, beautiful song. Anyhow, I was actually his designated bodyguard one night to escort him from the dressing room to the stage, which was hilarious because I believe Neil's like a 6-degree black belt. He doesn't need any help. But anyhow, I had a lot of guys work for me that worked for big stars. I was fortunate enough to get to open for a few of the big acts. I've met a few people. I got to hang out with Tracy Lawrence, who in South Dakota one year, and Tracy was one of my heroes. That meant a lot to me when I got to meet him because he was a big star, and I didn't, know if he'd give me the time of day, but heck, he was real nice. Sat down and visited with me for a while. Then I ran into him a few hours later at the casino because they have casinos there in South Dakota, and he recognized me and he came over. I was playing the video poker and having a cocktail, and he came over and visited and hung out for a while. So it's pretty neat. And I lived in Nashville, Tracy Lawrence was down there, Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw. Kenny Chesney was playing the same club circuit I was. And Trace Atkins, one of his managers or one of his agents was a lady named Diana Milam from Dallas. She was one of my agents as well back in the 90s and early 2000s.
See, that's one of the things my loyal listener needs to know. This music community is tight. It's real tight. You think that, okay, yes, people get to different levels. You're making this much money. You perform in front of this many people, but you're still a musician, a creative, a person that wants to make something to make somebody else feel something. And when you're making that music, you make people feel something. Now you have the album is, I guess one of the albums is They Call Me a Playboy. That you had. How long ago was that album put out?
Well, so here's an interesting story I'll tell you. Mm-hmm. That we recorded that album Christmas week of 1997. What happened was my band leader was a gentleman named Ellis Miller, who had been a session player on the West Coast and had played on gold records for artists like Red Sovine. He also had played some for Ray Price and Hank Thompson. Ellis had a connection with Gene Breeden, who had a recording studio in United Artists Tower in Nashville. And Ellis, who was the oldest guy in the band, Ellis was like 56 at the time. I was like 32, somewhere in that ballpark. And so he called Gene and said, hey, we got this, young guy that we had an amazing following in Southern Colorado, and then it just expanded. But we really did. Places were booking us that had never had bands before just because we were drawing such a large crowd. I mean, I remember us playing a pizza joint one time because we were pulling in crowds, and we were playing all the clubs. We stayed. It was great because we were making paychecks every week. We were working all the time. Then we got into 2 agent-only clubs. And then it blew up from there. We ended up with 13 national agents working in the 11-state region. But that's where we recorded that first artist, was an album at United Artists Tower. We had success with it. We had FM radio play in about 7 states back in the 90s. And we toured for 6 years with that album. It's a good album. I was real proud of it. So during the COVID, I was having some real health problems. And I want to tell you the full story to explain it. So I played full time for 22 years, from age 15 to 37. When I was 37, Nashville's policy at that time was they wouldn't sign anybody over the age of 35. And what they really wanted and what they were signing was 21 to 26-year-olds. The industry had changed. they were no longer going out and finding people. People were going and they put you in, you almost had to buy a deal. They put you in artist development, teach you how to walk, talk, guitar lessons, swimming pool, whatever, to create an artist. And the industry just totally changed. So my father came down with cancer. I was actually playing in Billings, Montana at the time. My mother called, said, you ought to think about coming home. Dad's taking a turn for the worse. So we finished up our obligation, which was maybe 2 or 3 nights left. I called all the agents and said, we'll fulfill what's on the calendar, but don't give us any more bookings. I explained what was going on. And I had a good relationship with all the agents because I was making them money. They were always getting their commission. It was nothing. We never had any problems on either side. We had a great working relationship with all 13 agents. So I sat down with my players. I had a facility where I could bring in musicians from coast to coast, and we all lived on property. I could house about 5 or 6 guys. And I told everybody the scenario and said, you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want, as long as you need to. But I've got to go back to New Mexico and take care of my father. So the piano player, Rex Herring, he stuck around for over a year, which was great because he was definitely the most responsible one in the band. And he was the only non-drinker, non-partier in the band, so I was lucky there. And he took good care of my house. And because he was a piano player, he could stay busy enough just doing solo work. And then the drummer, Ronnie Klein, stayed for a handful of months. And then he ended up working for a lot of bigger artists. He worked for Fiddlin' Frenchy Burke and Doug Kershaw. Ended up working for those guys. And he's in the Phoenix area, still doing music now. We keep in touch. My guitar player at the time, a kid named Paul Bucks from Kentucky, his father had played for Ernest Tubb. His father had been a Texas troubadour. And he ended up getting a job immediately to go play guitar with someone in Louisville. And another band member had immediately landed a job in Phoenix, Arizona. So I went home, took care of my father for a handful of months till he passed. And then I stuck around to make sure Mom was going to be okay because they'd been married for, 45 years, whatever. And at that time, I thought my music career was over. I'd done 22 years full time. I was actually okay with it. A lot of my dreams had come true. One of the things that was always a dream of mine, and then it actually came true, was playing the A-room circuit. That was the goal of mine, and that, I'm real proud of that accomplishment because that was great. So many towns, so many states, so many people. Those were wonderful years. Plus, we just had a darn lot of fun on the road. I'll guarantee you. Some of those stories I can't tell you right now, but I'll tell you in private.
But anyhow, you're a real good boy taking care of your mom and dad. When your dad passed away, that says a lot about you, that you're good on family, and you going around, and playing with all these. It goes to show that this music business, this country western, this the music business in general is so intertwined. You mentioned how one of the people was a session artist and one of the people could go solo. If you want to play music, you just go out and play music, either with some people or by yourself. You go out and do it. There's an old saying, if a writer writes, an actor acts, a musician got to play. And, you're telling me, have you ever done session work? Cause that'll keep you busy and keep you, playing with a bunch of different people.
Even close.
Say again?
I'm not even close to being a good musician. I'm a singing cowboy and an entertainer. That's what I do best, is entertain. And I'm an acceptable singer, obviously, but entertaining's my strong point, Well, and I'm interacting with a live audience. But so then 15 years ago, I thought my music career was over for good. After 22 years, I was only 37 years old, but my goal had been to, like everybody's goal, at that, the front guy singers you're trying to make it, in Nashville. So I knew that door had closed, and I actually went out and fished on the pro tour for a few years and had great success. I qualified for the World Championships in 2003 and finished number 2 in the world out of 217 qualifiers. I I made paychecks while I was out there on tour for 4 years. I competed on all the Great Lakes. I competed from South Dakota to New York. Which helped my charter business back home, after success out on the pro tour. And I realized that, professional fishing is nothing more than organized gambling. So I thought I better get out while I'm ahead. And then 15 years ago, my entire family passed away, and my wife decided she wanted a better looking, younger, wealthier man. And it all happened right at the same time. And it was very devastating. And I was a little bit lost, but I couldn't fall apart because everybody was dead and gone. And I had to deal with funerals. I had to, be canceling everybody's credit cards. I had to be shifting land around and dealing with homes and so forth. So I was pretty lost. And when my wife left me, it was pretty devastating. But a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go to Bob Wills Days, which is the Super Bowl of Western Swing. It's the best music festival I've ever been a part of or witnessed or partaken in my entire life. And they do this every year, and it's the last Thursday, Friday, Saturday of April in Turkey, Texas, every year. It's the most fun you can have with your pants on. You got to go one of these days. But anyhow, I'd always wanted to go, and I'd kind of forgotten about it just because I did 11 years on the road, and I had, family and so forth. And I'd almost forgotten about it. So when this friend brought it up, I thought, yeah, I want to go. So we went, and the Texans, I'm a better dancer than I am a singer. I dance about 20 times better than I sing. And that's what got me my foot in the door in Nashville years ago. Well, the same thing happened 15 years ago in Texas. People noticed me on the dance floor, tearing it up, and they want to know who you are, what's your story. They found out I was a singer. Next thing you know, I'm on stage singing. And I've been singing at that festival in some facet for 15 years now. They have 4 main stages there. I've gotten to perform on 3 out of the 4. And the last 2 years, I got to sing at what they call the Church of Western Swing, which is a very prestigious thing in the world of Western Swing. All the Hall of Fame guys play there all week long, and it's an invite-only deal. And I finally got the invite the year before last, which meant a lot to me because that was one of my bucket list goals. And so that was a thrill and a half to be included in that now, the last 2 years. And many people were, encouraging me, very supportive of me, seemed like they liked my music. And then 8 years ago, a Hall of Fame fiddle player named Grady Smith, who had met me at Turkey, Texas, he got me and my steel guitar player, a gentleman named Larry Bressington. People in the music world know him as Chappie, but he's in the Great Britain's Country Music Hall of Fame. He's also in the Nebraska Country Music Hall of Fame. He got Chappie and I to join the Western Swing Society of the Southwest. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. If I'd have known about that organization back when I was working the A-Room circuit, oh my goodness, because it gave me a giant pool of the best players, guys that had worked for George Strait, Ray Price, Hank Thompson, Carl Smith, Roy Clark, and others, all these wonderful players that played big time, with all the biggest artists. Well, all these guys liked me, man. They were real kind to me. They took me under their wing. They would get me up to sing with their bands. Now, for a number of years now, I get my own showcases at all their events. They do 6 events a year between Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. And that really started things. And then during the COVID, that I don't want to lose track of because we started with that old album. This is where that comes into play. So I actually didn't think I was in real bad health.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that I might be around for only 12 weeks or, 3 to 6 months. I was not doing well. So I took that old album. A guy had reproduced it that heard me sing in Snyder, Texas at the big Coliseum there. They have a huge Western Swing Festival there every year. And I've been invited to sing now on the opening day every year for, 4 or 5 years now. It opens, the opening day is on a Wednesday, and then it runs all the way till through Saturday night. And this guy heard me sing, and we ended up being friends. He found out I had this old album. He had a studio in Kansas. He reproduced it for me in quantity. So when I thought I was not going to be on this earth much longer, I just started sending it to all these Hall of Fame players that I'd met, industry people, old band members, friends, because I thought I wanted to leave something behind, and also to show some folks that didn't already know that I had done a legitimate project once in my life. So what happened was this lady named Maria Parisi from New York, she was on the Cowtown Society of Western Swing board. She knew me as a dancer, didn't know I was a singer, just thought I was a dancer. She found out I had this album, and she got a hold of me and she said, Eric, I know some radio stations. Would you like me to get your music on radio? And I thought, great. I hadn't been on radio since the 90s. So I said, sure. And she got me on. It wasn't a lot of radio stations. It was like 17, 19 radio stations around the country. But this is where it got interesting. A disc jockey named H.D. Ainsworth, who's at the time had won the CMA Disc Jockey of the Year twice. He's won it 3 times now. But he called me, and at that time, he didn't really know me, but he was playing my music. He liked my music, and he really liked my song, Sioux City Sue, which was an old Hawkshaw Hawkins remake. And he was playing that a lot. A lot of times he'd open his show with that. So he called me out of the blue one day. Like I said, I'd never met the man. Now I've spent a lot of time around him. We broke bread. We visited, whatnot, in multiple states. But at that time, I'd never met the man. And he said, hey, a lady heard you on Louisiana radio this morning. She wants you to call her. And he goes, she wants to help you. And he goes, I know her personally. She can. So I thought, what the heck? So I called this lady up. Her name was Dina Wood. Turns out she's one of the top radio promoters in the state of Texas. Well, in about 10 days, she had me on 550 radio stations.
Wow.
And then it just kept snowballing. I'm not sure what the count is now, but 6 months ago, I was getting played on over 8,000 stations, and I think that number may be triple that by now. For a while, I was getting inundated with new stations every day. So that's how this whole thing happened. That was an old album. That was a 25-year-old album. When we re-released it is when it, almost won Album of the Year. It helped me. It's the reason I won the Western Swing Male Vocalist here. 8 days later, I had 2 Nashville labels wanting to sign me and a third label that I was on their radar. I ended up making a verbal commitment with a label. I'm no longer with them, but I did get a great album out of the deal. That there were a few things about the label that was a little crooked and snaky, if I may say so. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but it was not good and it was not honest. I'm talking to a new label right now. Matter of fact, just last week I was in Merle Haggard's son's house, Noel Haggard, and he's involved with this label. It's an offshoot of Sony Records. We're hoping everything checks out. If everything they tell me is the truth, it'll be the best thing that's ever happened to me. But after my last experience, I'm kind of gun shy and a little nervous, but we'll see. We'll get some, music entertainment attorneys involved. And if everything's legit, then I'll be back on track with another label. But in the meantime, I'm still working, not as much as I'd like. So if anybody out there in podcast land is listening to this, man, I got a great band. Everybody in the band's in either the Country Music Hall of Fame or the Western Swing Hall of Fame, except for me. And we'll go anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I want to work. I want to play. I told this label, and I told the old label, I said, I don't have visions of grandeur. I know my age. I know what I look like these days. But I said, work me like a pack mule, man. I just want to be out there performing, enjoying the audiences, because I really like interacting with people. And I just work me like a pack mule, work me to death. I just want to be performing and playing, man. That's all. People are like, when I did this last album, people are like, aren't you excited about recording? Honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. I learned a lot. It was a great experience, and the album turned out incredible. But for me, the live performance, that's what floats my boat. My friends are like, aren't you excited about going in there? I'm like, man, I got to jump on a plane. I got to do all this rigmarole. that to me is not fun, man. I'll be glad when it's behind me. I'm glad it is behind me, and I'm glad it was extremely successful. But I love performing, and really, most of what we do is dance festivals. I'm not real comfortable playing in front of just an audience that just sits and stares. Although I've done plenty of shows like that, but I love to play for the big dances, and that's in Texas. They have these giant dance festivals. I mean, the dance floors are as big as a hockey rink. You know what I mean? And or bigger. You know, massive. There's one dance hall in Texas. The dance floor alone is 5,000 square feet.
Wow.
And hall. And I love to play to a dancing audience. We play dance music. That's what I do best. You know, I just want to be put to work. I'm looking for a tour promoter that'll just put me to work and let me make them paychecks. Help me help you.
Well, Eric Diamond, you don't show any signs of slowing down. You've been through hardships, heartbreak, death, you know, and all this. I mean, you said you were almost ready to give up, but no, don't give up. Pick back up, and opportunities came. You just got to get out there and keep on hoofing, and you're doing it, man. You're doing the work to get the work. I want to see you going all over the world doing your thing. And now, yeah, I understand the feeling of playing in front of people that aren't dancing. No, I want to play in front of a crowd that's just dancing, feeling the vibes. You know, I don't play instruments. At least you have the ability to sing for the people. Do you play any instruments at all?
I used to play trumpet fairly well long time ago, and I've been trying to be a guitar player forever, but I'm not very good. Matter of fact, I haven't played guitar on stage since the late '90s, early 2000s. I mostly just sing because that's what I do best is sing and entertain. And I've got great guitar players. I mean, Joe Settlemeyer, he's considered the greatest jazz guitar player on planet Earth. He was a Texas playboy for Bob Wills, a Cherokee cowboy for Ray Price, a Brazos River Valley boy for Hank Thompson. He played in Roy Clark's band, Willie Nelson's band, Little Jimmy Dickens' band. He played with the Glenn Miller Orchestra after Glenn was gone. He's done session work for George Strait, session work for 20 years with Vince Gill. He works with the Time Jumpers. He plays guitar at 90% of my shows. I love Joe like a father, you know, and he is amazing. And you know, the last thing any of those guys ever want to see is me plug a guitar in.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with a session worker that can play with so many different, you know, a hired gun. You know, if you play guitar well, you're gonna make money. You're gonna make a living doing this. If you play any instrument well, there's going to be a band that's going to need that certain instrument. Now, you played trumpet. It's kind of hard to sing and blow at the same time. So I understand why you might have given up that instrument. Although I do like a good trumpet too, and I got no problem with that.
Oh yeah, well, and on both albums, you know, Western Swing, like I said, it's kind of like Glenn Miller collides, or Sinatra and Glenn Miller colliding with Hank Williams. Bob Wills created this music. He took big band, he took the blues, he took mariachi music, he took the Cajun influence and molded it all into one wonderful form of Western dance music. So both albums, we have the horns. Matter of fact, the guy that played trumpet on the new album, he tours full time with Lyle Lovett, and the horn players were monsters, and they were so much fun to work with, and they loved the album. Because all the pickers in Nashville are forced to do so much bubblegum music that to do a project like this, they were absolutely loving it. You know what I mean? They all verbalized that to me.
No, I appreciate that so much. Now, you say you're a dancer, and I've seen videos. You do wiggle a little bit. Do you have formal training as a dancer? I know in high school, my coach told me to take dance because it would help with my agility. So I took a semester of dance in high school. I like dancing with the girls. I was one of only two guys in the class. It was kind of fun.
So here's a funny story. I always just had natural rhythm, and I was, you know, even as a little kid, I'm bebopping around acting a fool. But my dad wanted myself and one of my best friends to take formal dance lessons when we were like 15 years old, and we were both playing football. I was a quarterback, and he was a wide receiver, and we're like, nah, we're not going to take dance lessons. You know, we're like. And my dad, and thank God he did, he said, look, I will pay for these classes. Go one time, and if you don't like it, You don't have to go anymore. So we thought, okay, what the heck? We ended up loving it. Matter of fact, as we became older, young men, I remember Paul Maley, he ended up playing professional basketball. But anyhow, I remember him coming up to my father and saying, that Mr. Diamond, that was the greatest gift you could have ever done for us. Of course, we didn't know what he was setting us up for, but we're damn sure glad he did it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so that was great. And then I played basketball in college, and that's when the Dallas Cowboys were doing dance in order to increase flexibility, range of motion, so forth. So I actually did some of that too to try to improve myself as an athlete. But I grew up from the time I was 15 years old till even still today. Every Friday and Saturday night for years, I was in the honky tonks and cowboy bars dancing. And then in college, I majored in two-stepping and minored in beer drinking. You know what I mean? I went to college in Abilene, Texas, man. We went dancing every night of the week, unless we had a final exam or a term paper that needed to be turned in. You know what I mean?
And then it was only half the night.
Amen. And then, at these festivals, a lot of times, there'll be 12 different acts. So if I'm one of the acts, when my performance is over, I'm dancing to all the other acts, and I love to dance. I love it, It's for me, people have asked me, because I actually get hired. Occasionally I get paying jobs dancing as a dancer, not enough to call it a living, but now and then. And I've had several people in the last 2 or 3 years say, which do you like best? The dancing or the singing? And I say, if I was, young, if I was 22 years old and they said, we got you a full-time job as a singer or a full-time job as a dancer, and the pay was the same.
Yeah.
I'd have to go with dancing, because I dance 20 times better than I sing. And, I have, when I'm doing the Western swing style of dancing, man, it happens. You know what I mean? I don't even think it's come so natural, because I've been doing it for so long. When I'm singing, and I've been doing that for a long time too, I don't really get nervous, but still you're going, man, I got to do a good job. In your head, you're thinking, I can't screw up. I can't forget words. I can't look stupid. But on the dance floor, I don't have any of those worries, man. So I tell people, when I'm dancing, the world's perfect. And when I'm on stage singing, I feel like that's where the Lord wanted me to be. That's what I was made to do.
Well, you mentioned that you did a waltz, and I think a lot of country music is a waltz. It's that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can waltz to a lot of country music, and that there's that Western swing is great. Now, I do follow a couple of cloggers on my Instagrams and whatever on social media. I'm amazed by people that can clog and do that kind of dancing. What's your favorite kind of dancing? Do you have different styles, or is it all that Western swing?
With cowboy music, so the real cowboy dances, now that they've cityfied and they have some additional dance, but the real cowboy dances, the traditional cowboy dances, is the 2-step, the 3-step, which is the same as a polka, but just a little smoother, and the waltz. And then the swing or the jitterbug, which coincides with the 2-step. Those are the 3 main dances.
That's fantastic.
And I do them all. I can't handle as many. I used to be able to go start to finish 3-step into stuff like the Orange Blossom Special at 98 miles an hour. I can still let the audience know I can do it. You know what I mean? I can hang in there long enough to show everybody I still remember how to do it. But those 3 steps, tear me up at this age. I get at, other dancers, other competition dancers will come up, ask me and I'll be like, I'm good for about 1 a day on those things. But 2-stepping, I can do that 10 hours a day.
Well, I appreciate a good 2-step. I know I have a whole folder full of 2-step songs, and whenever somebody mentions 2-step, or I want to see if I can get the crowd to 2-step, my go-to song is Dumas Walker. But I know, that's my favorite to start with. And anybody that's listening to this knows next time they go to a show and they ask for a 2-step, he's going to play that Dumas Walker, isn't he? Now, what's your go-to 2-step song?
Boy, there's a bunch of them. One of my all-time favorite songs that I've been singing on stage since I was probably 15 years old. I love San Antonio Rose. That's the national anthem of Texas. That's the song that took Bob Wills from hamburger to steak. Love that song. Another one of my songs that I do in every live show and have for years. I love Hank Thompson's The Wild Side of Life. I love doing All of Me. But right now, if someone said, what's your favorite song to do live? I love singing I Can't Give You Anything But Love, because it's one of the songs I sing best, and the audience loves it, and it's one I can kind of have fun with. Playboy is another one. A lot of people think that's my song, and it's not. I mean, that was oh gosh, now I can't think of the old boy's name.
Well, it's what you named your band after.
Come to me, but yeah, I mean, they call me a Playboy. A lot of people, they're like, man, that is your song. They request it all the time. I love doing that one on stage for sure. I don't know if you've listened to our version of 4 in the Morning, but 4 in the Morning was originally a waltz. Great waltz. Matter of fact, it was a #1 hit for Farron Young. We took that song and turned it into a big band swing production. And a great story about that. We took that old Farron Young waltz and turned it into a swing. And in the 90s, it was one of the songs that got a lot of radio play. It was one of the most popular songs. And even today, guys are always coming up to me, these old guys that played with famous people are telling me, I love your version of that. But the best story about that is a guy named Tony Smith called me, and he played fiddle for Farron Young. And he called me on the phone. He said, man, I love what you did with that song, with Farron's song 4 in the Morning. And he goes, Farron would have loved this. And he told me an interesting story. He said Farron Young hated waltzes, and he did not want to record 4 in the Morning because it was a waltz. Well, it ended up being his #1 moneymaker and a huge #1 hit, right? But I just thought that was funny to hear that story. And to, for someone that knew Farron personally and that worked for Farron to call me and say, man, love your version of that song, that meant a lot to me. And that's on They Call Me a Playboy album. Both the albums are available on all platforms worldwide. So go to YouTube or whatever you like, Spotify, Rectify, whatever. I don't know all the platforms, but we're out there. Go check it out. All you got to do is type in Eric Diamond, All of Me, and that'll get you to the new album, which will lead you right to the old album. Or you can follow me on Facebook, send me a Facebook Messenger. We've been selling CDs off of Facebook. Just get a hold of me on Messenger. We'll get them shipped out to you. We also have a double album on thumb drive, which has both albums on it. So let me know. And I'll tell you how good this album is. I sold 13,000 copies, more than 13,000 copies of They Call Me a Playboy. And the new album, I've sold $10,000 worth since May 13th. And I tell everybody that buys it, if you don't like the album, it comes with a full money back guarantee. No other Western swing artist in the world is going to make you that offer. And of all the albums we've sold, not a single one has come back. Nobody wants their money back. So that's how I feel good about that album. You will not be disappointed.
Well, Eric Diamond, I'm glad that you mentioned social media. If I do, and the different ways to get a hold of you. So Facebook is definitely the best way to get a hold of you. That is where you get in contact with your fans, right?
Yeah, right now. So you got time for another funny little explanation?
Please do.
So literally like 3-4 years ago, I thought Wi-Fi was like an Oriental dessert. I never used technology in my entire life. In 1983, I signed up for computer class. I went to class on the first day. I turned the computer on, whatever. Went to class second day, immediately went to the office and dropped the class. I thought, I don't need this. I never used modern technology. People 20 years ago, 25 years ago were trying to get me to do it. All my buddies. 15 years ago, my wife was doing it. I'm like, I don't need this, because I'm a fishing and hunting, singing cowboy. Why do I need a computer? So I never used modern technology. This is a true story. They made me tell it on radio in Georgia, Louisiana, Wyoming, and Texas. So now we can add Arkansas to the list. But, I didn't do anything modern technology. Hell, I haven't even had television for the last 15 years. So when I got nominated for those 2 big national awards, a close came over and said, Eric, you're doing this. I'm going to set it up and show you how to run it, and you're going to do it. And I'm glad he did. I mean, it's helped me sell a lot more albums. It's helped me get a lot more exposure. But I just fought technology forever. I didn't want to live my life that way. But I'm glad I did. I do it now. But funny story, I didn't know what Wi-Fi was. I'd hear people Wi-Fi this and Wi-Fi that, and Roku's, all this technology. I didn't know what any of it meant. And I'd travel all over the country, right? And I'd check into these hotels, and they'd tell you, we got a free breakfast from 6 to 9. The swimming pool's here. You got a hot tub here. The weight room's here. And they'd always end with, and you got free Wi-Fi. So I thought, okay, I like free, they love the price. So I'd go up in the room and I'd look for this Wi-Fi. I couldn't find it. I'd look in the gift basket next to the bottled waters and chocolate mints, and no Wi-Fi in there. I'd look in the dresser drawer or the nightstand next to the Bible, no Wi-Fi in there. I'd go in the bathroom next to the shampoo and lotion, again, no Wi-Fi. So I thought, well, what is this? Everybody's ranting and raving about getting free Wi-Fi. So I'm checking into a hotel in Oklahoma. This was a handful of years ago, and the lady tells me about the weight room and the free breakfast and so forth and so on. And she ends with, and you got free Wi-Fi. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, ma'am, would you mind just keeping that free Wi-Fi and giving me extra coffee? And that's a true story. You should have seen the look on her face. And then shortly thereafter, I learned what Wi-Fi was, and now I use it, I guess.
Hey, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, man. And look, it's good. You're gonna survive when the nuclear holocaust happens. You're gonna be one of the people that when all the EMP goes off and all the electricity goes out. You're gonna be the man providing the food and living off the land and helping everybody else to acclimate.
Can't survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you mentioned social media. I'm looking you up on YouTube, Eric Diamond. Have you run into the Eric Diamond, Neil Diamond impersonator? Have you met this fella online or in the world?
I'm glad you brought that up because I've never met him, but there's Eric Diamond, the Neil Diamond impersonator. There's a black gentleman that's a singer named Eric Diamond, and then there's me. So people would get us confused, and I'd say, just look for the white guy in the cowboy hat.
Makes it simple.
That's me.
Makes it simple. And you go and saying Eric Diamond, all of me, or Eric Diamond, they call me a playboy, or Eric Diamond, slide off your satin sheets. Pick your name and a song, and they're going to find it on the list. But mostly I'm going to put the link to your YouTube, to your Facebook page in the show notes so people can click on it and find their way over to you and maybe buy one of those albums and listen to it, put it on their backyard party and have people swinging. I usually finish these things off with some shout outs for people that have helped you along the way. I know I don't want this to be the last time that we talk because you are an interesting gentleman. You have street cred. I still haven't come up with maybe my loyal listener will come up with a new term for the country version of street cred.
How about cowboy credit?
Cowboy cred, cow cred. Yeah. Okay. Cowboy credit. Cowboy
cred. I love it.
That's fine. All right. Give some shout outs to people that have helped you along the way.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to start with KeysDAN Gordon. If there's any other music artists listening to this show, I had read about KeysDAN Gordon. I thought, I'm going to try this guy out. He is the most honest person in the music business that I have met, which was a breath of fresh air for what I've been dealing with the last year or so. And he makes it happen. He's that guy. He's probably the hardest working guy in country music. He's gotten me podcasts, radio interviews, magazines, 7,000 radio stations. He's the best radio promoter I've ever known. I definitely recommend him. I've got to say thanks to Dana Wood, who got the ball rolling in the beginning, did a fine job. All the guys from the Western Swing Society, John Jones, Larry Lang, Grady Smith, Jimmy Burson, Chuck Cusimano, Greg Gibbs, I don't want to leave anybody out, so give me a sec.
Oh, they'll give you a pass.
Swing Society, all the greats in Texas, Jody Nix, Billy Mata, Rocky King, again, one of my favorites, Greg Gibbs, Jason Roberts, all those guys inspired me. They've all been kind to me. Some of us are closer than others, but I consider them all my friends, and they've all, Kelly Spinks, boy, I don't want to leave him out. He's done a lot to help my career. He's a full-time fiddle player on the Penny Gilly Show. Kelly's helped me a bunch. Ellis Miller, that was my original band leader. John Bobby Francis, who was my band leader with Cowtown Swing. He had worked with John Conley during the Rose-Colored Glasses era. All the players that worked with me over the years in the Rocky Mountain Playboys. I mean, so many thanks. All the people from Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri that are involved in Western Swing that have been so supportive. All the fans that have come to our dances, bought my albums, and just the outpouring of kindness on Facebook. I've met some incredible people through social media and have become, actually have met them in person now at different places, just all the wonderful people that have helped me out and that are still helping me out, all the songwriters. Man, I got songwriters from coast to coast sending me great songs. I just thanks to everybody, man. Everybody who ever gave me a chance, gave me a job. You know what I mean?
You're a very loving person, man, and it's good to give credit where credit is due. But see, now if you don't know something about Wi-Fi, you got a bunch of people. You got a whole team full of people that are going to help you out in those respects. So that's
where I'm lucky. I got a lot of smart friends, so I'm lucky there. I got people that can tap. I can sing and fish, put groceries on your table, but I got friends that can do the rest, thank God.
See, that's a sign of a good leader. You hire people that are better at a certain task than you are, and not feel bad about it. That maybe you can't do that thing. I'll hire somebody who can do that thing better than me, and that's a good leader right there. Well, I don't want to take too much more time. I always finish these things off with last words for the people. This could be words to live by. This could be something you heard a long time ago, maybe a mantra you wake up with every morning, or whatever pops into your head at this moment in time. Eric Diamond, give the last words for the people.
I had something smart to say, and I probably would if I had some thought or if you'd have prepped me in advance, but just try to love one another, man. And this world's hard on all of us. So just try to love one another and support one another. And that's about all I can say.
Well, there you have it, party people. Eric Diamond. What a good dude. The man's got cred. Cowboy cred. We just made that up. Cowboy cred. It's like street cred except for country and Western singers and swingers and singing and dancing. He can dance. He can two-step. Three-step? I don't even think I've seen a three-step. Waltz? Definitely seen a waltz. Definitely done a waltz. Tried to do a two-step. I think I almost hurt myself, but I'll try it again probably this weekend while I'm playing Eric Diamond's music at the club. Oh, man. Eric Diamond, you keep on doing what you do and making the people happy and performing for those big crowds because you want to see them dancing. It's nice. Hey, look, performing for people that are sitting down, it's one thing. But like me, I understand the feeling. I want to see them dancing, having a good time, moving and grooving and swinging and dancing to the music that you're playing in front of them. And hey, I look forward to hearing more from you, and I hope that this helps a bit. And hey, my loyal listener, I hope that you go to the Facebook page, profile, and give him a little slip into his DMs, business only, or just say hello to Eric Diamond and make sure that he knows that you're out there. Tell him KeysDAN sent you. All right, that's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. Now, if I'm turning my attention to you, my loyal listener. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call, 501-470-6386. Or email KeysDAN@AOL.com. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.